Good morning. Let's go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for coming today. In October, we were lucky enough to have Alec Muthig here from the University of Wyoming IT training, and he talked about what he's learned about Copilot. If you do want a longer Copilot training, he does do 90-minute trainings through the University of Wyoming, and it's free, and he's going to give you information about how to sign up for that. But because not all of our constituents, stakeholders know about the UWIT training, we asked him to come and give a little bit longer demonstration here. In October, the panelists they didn't really have enough time to give actual demonstrations of the products. And so today I really wanted him to do that. And he's got 7 different demonstrations to do. So welcome, Alec. And I'm going to let you take it from here. I'm going to mute myself, but if anybody has questions, this is a small group. Feel free to put them in the chat. I will interrupt Alec and ask, or, it is a small enough group. If he's doing something right then you want to say, wait, do that again or something, go ahead and unmute and you're welcome to talk. So Alec, I'm turning it over to you.
Great. And my audio is okay? Fantastic. Welcome, everybody. I'm Alec Muthig. I manage the IT training program at the University of Wyoming. And thanks, Laura, for having me. I get excited about talking about technology like Copilot. And so you'll see me getting excited today as I give some examples. I had a very difficult time picking the examples because I have so many. I do offer a longer session that's like this, where I give more examples. So if you are interested, I'm going to, in the chat, send the link to our catalog, and that will take you, let me share my screen. That will take you to the spot right here. So hopefully you can see my catalog right there on the screen. And we're offering the next 90-minute Copilot completely free on January 30th from 2 to 3:30 Mountain Time. And then we're going to have another one in February, so probably once a month. So if you can't catch this one and you feel like joining, we'll have others on the calendar and in the catalog soon enough. We'll be adding them, along with a lot of other AI workshops that we're building right now, but aren't quite yet available. So again, as Laura said, I'm going to kind of talk about Copilot and give some examples. And I really welcome any type of feedback and questions and comments. Maybe you've used Copilot. In 60 minutes, I can't cover everything, unfortunately. So I'm going to try to pick and choose. So hopefully I don't miss what you're really, really wanting to know. If it seems like you're going to miss something, speak up. Let me know, and I'll see if I can answer it. So with that being said, I think, let me pull up my chat and monitor that. I think I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about Copilot. So first of all, Copilot is Microsoft's version of their generative AI tool. So you've probably heard of ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Bard or Claude or all these things that are out there that are generative artificial intelligence. This is Microsoft's version, although it is based on OpenAI ChatGPT technology, but it's what Microsoft is now bundling with a lot of their products. Now, there are a lot of different versions, and I can send these links to you later. I can give them to Laura if she'd like, because this is basically going to go over this page here. We'll go over what Copilot is, some of the things you can do with it, how to get it, all of that, which of course, I don't have time to cover all of that. But I have another one here that is specifically for Microsoft 365. So I want to talk about the 3 different versions of this artificial intelligence first, because it's really confusing, I think, for most people to find the version that they need. And I'm going to pull up my handout for my other class and just reference this. I'm going to send a copy of this to all of you in the chat right now so that you have it if you feel like taking this with you and using it to explore Copilot, feel free to. But the first thing I want to bring up are the 3 versions. And there's a free version, there's a pro version, and the Microsoft 365 version. Now, the free version you might have played with. If you have the Edge browser, you probably see a Copilot button, and you can ask questions of Copilot about web pages, web information. You could pull up a YouTube video and ask Copilot to summarize it. So it'll do quite a bit within the browser itself. You can also go to copilot.microsoft.com and do a free web app. And it's also embedded inside of new Microsoft operating systems. So if you have the new version of Windows 11, you'll see Copilot. And there's Copilot right there in Windows 11. Again, it's pretty limited in what it can do. So if you think of Copilot, and I know people who have tried it and said, well, it's not that impressive, it's because they've used the free version. When you get to the paid tiers, it gets much, much more impressive. So most of you, I think, are here probably from businesses or nonprofits. And so you're looking probably from a paid version of Microsoft Office, which leads you to one of these options, either the Pro version, which you can get in some versions of Microsoft Office. It is embedded in some Office products like Word and Excel. But most of us, I think, now have a Microsoft 365 subscription. And that is where it gets to be very powerful. Now, it's not cheap. And I do have to mention that it is the biggest sticky point for most people I know for getting Copilot. So we have it at the university, we have it available, and people have to purchase it. Their departments have to purchase it. And it is just trickling out as people determine whether it's going to be valuable enough for them to justify the cost. Now, the cost currently, and the links that were sent to you have that information in it. The cost currently for 365 business or enterprise users is going to be $30 per month per person. And you can't share the account. You can't share it because it is tied to your specific Microsoft account. So that can get pretty expensive for organizations at $360 a year per person every single year. So you really have to know whether it's going to be valuable enough to justify that cost or not. Now, nonprofits is a little less. I think it's $25, $25.50, I think I just saw. And so the costs are on this page here. And then on the Microsoft nonprofit, we can see down here, I think it's at $25.50. So if you're a nonprofit, you can get a slight discount, but that's still a lot. That's still a lot of money, and you'll have to determine whether it's going to be useful enough for you or not. Now, many of you may have used AI like ChatGPT, the free version, and you can do a lot with ChatGPT free. And so the question in my class usually comes up: why would I pay $25 or $30 a month for a Microsoft product here when I can use ChatGPT or Google Gemini for free, at least the free version? Well, I'm going to kind of give you some demonstrations because I'm guessing most of you use Excel and Microsoft Word. You might use Outlook for email. You might not. You might use Teams. You might use a lot of these wonderful Office products. And to have an AI assistant embedded in these products and connecting across the entire Microsoft ecosystem could be valuable to you. Now, if you're not a Microsoft Office user, this probably is not going to be all that valuable. I'm a heavy Office user. I use many of the products. And for an artificial intelligence assistant to be able to work across all these products and give me information is pretty valuable to me. I liken the $360 a year to a very inexpensive assistant. That's cheaper than a work study student. That's horrible to say. But it's going to be powerful if you use it efficiently, effectively, and consistently. So, questions about the versions or pricing before I get into kind of showing what I can do, which will take a lot of time.
I don't think there's any questions in the chat, but I've been putting the links from yours in the chat, so you don't have to send those afterwards.
Okay. Now, to get it, I mean, at the university, you have to go to your IT department because we manage IT, we manage the accounts. And so you'd have to get it as an add-on. But with your organizations, it really depends on your organization. It depends on what version of Office you're running. It depends on how IT might be managing office. If it's this very small group, it might be much easier than a larger group. So you'll have to talk with your IT specialists to determine how you're going to get this turned on or added on for your account. And it can be turned on per account, which is nice. You don't have to turn it on for the whole enterprise or not. So without further ado, let me close some of these links here and talk about where Copilot is. Now we're going to see Copilot is this symbol right here. So I'm in my Office 365 cloud right now, and you'll see there's Copilot. You'll see I'm in Windows 11. There's Copilot down here. So wherever you see this emblem is where you can access your artificial intelligence assistant. So let me start by pulling up Microsoft Word and showing that to you. So maybe I'm in Microsoft Word. I start a new document. We'll see here's Copilot here. And we'll see there's another Copilot option here. So as soon as you get Copilot added onto your account, you're going to see it appear both in the cloud apps and within 24 hours on all of your Microsoft desktop apps, which is pretty nice. So this is Word on the desktop, and you can see I have Copilot pane on the right-hand side and a Copilot assistant for drafting text right here and revising text. So that's in Word. We're going to see that it's also in Excel. It's also in PowerPoint. We're going to see it in Outlook. We'll see it in Microsoft Teams. We'll see it in OneNote. Also, other apps in the cloud like Forms and Power BI and et cetera, et cetera. So you're going to see this AI assistant available across many Microsoft products. Again, I usually spend a lot of time in Word explaining the basics of how to use it, so then you can then extrapolate and you know how to use it in PowerPoint and Excel and the other places. I don't have that much time today, so it's going to be more of a demonstration. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm in Word, and I've got, again, two places to access Copilot. The Copilot pane. And basically, the Copilot pane is where you ask Copilot about the document that you've opened. So if you opened a 50-page white paper and you have some questions about the white paper because maybe you're pressed for time, you can ask Copilot to summarize it, or give me the top 10 things, or what about this in the white paper? And Copilot will analyze the white paper very quickly and give you answers. Pretty valuable. This button over here for Copilot will actually allow you to write or revise text. Now, again, we don't have enough time in this class to talk about prompting, but we're going to find with any artificial intelligence, whether it's Copilot or ChatGPT or Google Gemini, everything comes down to how good you are with prompting and working through this iterative process of looking at the output and then adjusting your prompt and going back and forth with AI until you have a workable draft of something. So I use it in multiple ways in Word. Sometimes I will take a large piece of text and say, could you make this into something that's 3 sentences long? For example, I have workshops that I have to put onto a catalog. You saw my catalog a second ago. When I put a course up, I have a long description, but I need a 1 or 2 short sentence teaser to put with the tile. I don't write those anymore. I ask Copilot to look at the description and just give me a little teaser. And then I take that, and 90% of the time, it's perfect. So again, prompting is going to be key. So let me start with a really simple one. So I might come over to this little button here and click on it, and it brings up Copilot. And here's where you type your prompt, up to 2,000 characters. And notice I can reference multiple files. At least at the time of the writing of the handout, this will probably change at some point. You can reference up to 3 files in one prompt. And the files can be Word documents. They could be PowerPoint presentations. They could be PDFs, which is really useful because we all tend to use PDFs. And you can then ask it to do something, to draft something. So how many of you could just give me a little raise of hands or something. How many of you have to write something on a regular basis, whether it is marketing text or an outline for a project or a monthly report that you have to put together, which I just had to do my end of year report, right? Those all are very time consuming to draft that initial draft. And then it's time consuming, of course, to go through and then edit the draft until you have a finished product. Copilot helps a huge amount in writing the draft for you. So I have to give it information, and the more information that I give it in the prompt, the better the draft will be. I have to give it context and the information I want it to include. I should mention the tone and the audience. For example, I was working with a group recently, and we wrote something about pig care, actually, how to take care of pigs. And it was a 4-H group. And they said, well, we didn't quite state that this was actually more for 12-year-olds. We need to write this at a different level. So I just added to the audience. He said, oh, write this for a 12-year-old. And it changed the tone of the same information, and it was perfect. So again, you have to designate all of these things in the prompt. So
Alec, can I ask you a quick question? Have you ever done, and I don't want to mess up your demo, but have you ever done a prompt for make me a flyer for an event or something?
Not within Word, I haven't. I use Word mostly for text, and I don't think it's going to do the layout for you in Word. So that would be a different product. I probably would use Canva, and since I have a paid Canva, I would probably use Canva's AI for that. So
thank you.
Canva also has AI, but you could use the text inside a Word for that. So I could say, create. How about this? Write a fun and exciting advertisement for the upcoming Cybersecurity Awareness Festival. It sounds great, right? Held on January 18th at the Gateway Center in Laramie, Wyoming. I don't know. So I didn't give it a lot of information. Notice I did give it a date. I gave it a title. I gave it where it's going to be. I probably should talk about who the audience would be. Is this for IT professionals? Is it for business? Is it for nonprofit? Is it for students? I don't know. We should probably mention that, but I'm going to leave it here, and then I can just say, let's see what Copilot does. Now, my biggest thing about Copilot is I recommend that you never just write one draft. You revise. You basically tell it to write it multiple times. So again, here's this. This is pretty long. I didn't tell it how long it should be either, did I? Oops. So if I don't tell it how long it should be, there should be one paragraph, half a page, something like that. It kind of gets wordy. It really does. So notice this. Get ready for an exciting event on January at the Gateway Center. Get ready to dive into the world of cybersecurity with a splash of fun and excitement at the upcoming Cybersecurity Awareness Festival. Why you can't miss this event, festival highlights. Look at it. It made things up. Actually, these are great ideas. We should include these. So one of the things that I do, I'll mention this, I sometimes use this to brainstorm in this way, right? I left out details and it kind of made up some things. I'm like, that's a great idea. Let's include that. So you can use AI to just brainstorm things, kids cyber zone. So we didn't give it any information and it kind of made things up, which means you have to watch for those made up hallucinations and change those. But it definitely made it exciting. Now, if I wanted to adjust this, here's my prompt. I can make adjustments to my prompt, how long it should be, what to include, specific things, who the audience is. So again, that's the prompt I can edit. If I want to just add to the tone, I can make a few little adjustments by typing in this box, or I can just say, let's just recreate it completely. I want a different draft. I always do this. I always do this at least 3 times, and then I compare them. So we'll notice this is actually different. So this is a different version. And we can go back and forth between the versions right here and look at them. And if I like that second version, I could say keep it and then add and change as needed. So it gave me a starting point just with a simple prompt. So I use this quite a bit for marketing, etc. that often takes a lot of time for me to draft something initially. I use Word or Copilot to now draft for me that initial item. Not always, but I use it quite a bit. Any questions about that example? I'm not going to get into drafting and prompting because usually that sucks me into an hour-long demonstration of just prompting and changing prompts and trying different things. But I wanted to show you at least very simply that we could go in and very quickly have some kind of draft to start with. I like that cyber kid zone. Anyway, and the capture the flag is a great idea. So that's the first example here. I'm going to do another one. Let's go to another blank document. I want to get a little more advanced, though. I have a series of files for us to work with. I'm guessing some of you have to advertise job openings sometimes. And you probably have a job description. So I've got a sample job description here, information technology, for a software support specialist with job description, qualifications, benefits, how to apply. So really simple job description that may have been added to a job advertisement or posting. And I might also have a resume. So here's John's resume. Very simple resume. It's an IT specialist with Gem City computer support, education, some skills, certification, A+ certification. This is all fake, by the way. So I have a resume as well. What if I'm John and I want to write a cover letter? So cover letters are just notoriously challenging to write, as are letters of recommendation. I will probably use Copilot for all of those things in the future. So what if I went into Copilot and I said, write a cover letter for John Meadows using his resume. And then I'm going to go ahead and reference a file. And there's that file. Applying for, and let's reference the content. It's not in there because it's didn't see it yet, but I just need to type the name of it. And it was called, I think, sample job description or job description sample. Yeah, job description sample. There it is. So I'm just saying, write a cover letter using his resume, applying for job description. Now, the reason that I use this as a sample is that I want to see if AI can look at one document and see if it can knit it together with another document. Can it see the things that somebody has as their qualifications and see if they qualify for this position and write a cover letter to connect them? I'll tell you that sometimes it works well and sometimes not so well. Okay, so it wrote a cover letter. Dear Hiring Committee, I'm writing to express my interest in the information technology software support specialist position at the University of Wyoming. Goes through the bachelor's degree, that the person had 2 years of technical support. Great opening, actually, really good opening. And then my current role at Gem City Support, provide technical support, proficient in Windows. So it's tying these together. If you were to look at the job and the resume, it's tying together the qualifications and experience. And wrote.
Alec, we had a question.
Yeah.
So it's tying these two Word documents together. Does it do the same? Will it tie two PowerPoints together, two Excel documents together too?
Yes. So it'll work with, if you had Word documents, if you have PDFs, because this is a Word and a PDF here. If you have a PowerPoint presentation, absolutely. Excel is not quite there yet for some reason. I am waiting for them to allow you to say, please take a look at this data and use this in this report or the summary, but it's not quite there yet. So Excel's not included, but I foresee that as being probably their next step. So it's pretty limited in the files, but at least PDFs are included, which are really important.
So we had another question. To reference the document, does it have to be uploaded to your OneDrive or can it be taken off of your local computer files or both?
It'll need to be in the cloud.
Okay.
So in some version of OneDrive or SharePoint. Great question.
Yep, those were both the questions. I'll keep interrupting you, but this is great.
So to me, this is a great start. Now, this is not the finished product. That's going to be the case with all of the AI stuff that we work on. Don't expect it to create a finished product. You're going to want to add your own personalization to this. So I would come in here and I might have it create a few versions. I might compare the versions. And once I like it, I would keep it. Again, I can make adjustments to what I want it to. I could come back up here and say, please focus on my Linux and Windows operating system skills, or something like my customer support experience. I could tell it what to focus on, and it will do that. Or I could even say in the style of, I don't know if it will. It might make it explode.
I could see this being great for a Renaissance fair in the style of Tolkien.
In the hallowed halls of Gem City computer support, why I applied my trade. So that did it okay. So I can adjust the tone a little bit. That was kind of a wild version. You don't embark on odysseys at Tech Solutions, but yeah, notice you could tell it to change the tone. That was a wild version, but it'll even change it to a specific author if you wanted to. Use Star Trek, right? So that's another example. And this to me is exciting because it can take files and it will look at them and tie things together. To me, that is very impressive. Okay, here's another one that I just recently did. I'm just gonna go ahead and close all this. Keep it clean. Otherwise, I'll be dancing around 30 different things at the end trying to find what I was working on. I just did, let's see, evaluation comments. So I just had to do an end of year report for the training program at IT. And I had to pull evaluation comments out of our surveys. And most people don't leave comments. Most people just do a 1 out of 5, et cetera. But there are comments. I've got 7 pages of comments that I pulled. And so I have to go through all these. And I could just give somebody the comments and say, here you go, sift through them yourself. You know what I want to do? I kind of want to pull up the Copilot pane and try this over here. I could say, let's summarize this document. Notice there it is, summarize this document. Now, again, I can add to this, summarize this document, focusing in on this or whatever, but I'm going to leave it very simple, summarize this document and see what it gives me. And that was very fast. And this is the summary it gave me. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to copy this text. Notice it gives me little places where it found that information. So it gives me references in the document. So I can go to those references if I want. But I'm going to go ahead and copy it. And I'm going to open up a new document. And I'm going to just paste it in there. And you'll see it took 7 pages and worked it down to what it sees here. Positive feedback. Many participants praised Alec for his knowledge, enthusiasm, ability to create conducive learning environment, making complex topics accessible and engaging. Effective teaching methods. It goes through and basically explains each of these places for course improvement. These are what it pulled out of the 7 pages. It was looking for things that stood out or themes or patterns and put it into this here. Again, I would not leave this without reading it. I would read through it. And I'd probably want to read through all the comments myself and then create this. But this is what I would provide if it matches. This is what I would provide on the report. Now, I could have done this myself, but going through 7 pages of evaluations or more, 10, 12, 15 pages that I've had in the past, and trying to come up with patterns and key things would probably take me the better part of a day to do, I think. And then write up a concise summary to provide to somebody.
So are the numbers next to the summary, is that keyword counts or something like that?
So these were the links. When you copy and paste the text, they don't work anymore. But notice over here, what it is it tells you where it got that information. So introduction to new tools, several comments highlighted the effectiveness of the training and introducing new tools such as Teams and AI applications in Zoom. If I hit this, it'll go to a comment that was specifically used. So that's what this does, is it gives you specific examples of that it used to determine that. So references, footnotes, basically. So pretty useful. Again, this will work for anything. Summarize it. What are some key topics in this? What are some key findings? What are areas of improvement? Was a specific application mentioned? So this, I found this, I just did this the other day, and this was extraordinarily useful for my report. It saved me a lot of time. And if you have to do any type of reporting based on data collection or comment specifically qualitative analysis, Copilot is really going to be helpful for that type of analysis. Customer satisfaction, right? Comments, super useful to help you analyze that, because that's really time consuming. We're going to use this. We're actually teaching a class called Performance Evaluations using AI. And anyone who's a manager or supervisor has had to do some form of performance evaluation, right? To say, here's some wonderful achievements, and here's maybe some areas to work on, and here are things that maybe we can do next year. We're going to look at how to use AI to do that. And we're going to use this as an example because there are some groups on campus that do have comments, whether they're faculty member with student comments or other customer satisfaction comments. We're going to use this as an example of how you can extract data using Copilot or other AI. So there's a lot you can do in Word. Again, I can spend easily just an hour in Microsoft Word because it is fantastic. And we all spend a lot more time in Word than we probably think we do. I can come back to this at the end if people have questions, but I kind of want to show some others. PowerPoint. I don't know how many of you have to use PowerPoint to create presentations. To me, I have to present various things. And let me do a string. This is going to even be more fun. I'm going to come back into this. I didn't save it. I should have. I'm going to come back into my evaluation comments. I'm going to have to give a presentation to our senior directors about how Alec has been doing teaching workshops. So I pulled up the evaluation comments like I just did in Word. I went into Copilot. I said, go ahead and summarize this. Gives me a slightly different summary than last time, I think. I'm not going to look at it right now, but I am going to copy it. And I'm going to put it in a new document and save it. Great. And I'm going to then save this in OneDrive. And I'll save it in my AI area. Sorry, this is taking so long, but this is showing you how I might use it in real life. And I'll call this eval summary 2024. Okay, so now I have my eval summary 2024. Great. Saved, no problem. So now I'm going to pull up PowerPoint. And we'll see that Copilot is also embedded in PowerPoint. You could use Copilot using this button or this button here. Again, you're looking for the Copilot button. We could tell it to create a presentation about a specific topic. So maybe I needed to create a presentation about avoiding phishing at the University of Wyoming, something I might actually do, right? But I'm going to create a presentation from a file. And I need to point to the file. And the file is going to be called, it's a file, oops, not people. There we go. And I called it eval. Oof. file. Did I call it eval summary or evaluation summary? And sometimes when I put it in there, it takes a second for it to notice that I have something new in there. And I'm going to have to go find it. Okay. So I'm going to mention one thing while I poke around in here. Sometimes doing this through the cloud apps rather than the desktop apps is actually easier if you have to go to specific files. They allow you to more easily go and look for them rather than the desktop apps that are not quite there yet. There, so I found it. And I'm going to tell it to create a presentation from this file. See if I could do that. Not the most exciting presentation. But imagine if you have a report and you need to quickly build a presentation. Presentations are, for me, a time-consuming process to build good presentations. Copilot sometimes allows you to build some pretty good ones. Now, I will mention that I do have to often recreate my presentations multiple times because there are times I don't like what they've done at all. And I have to have it rebuild it. Just like in Word, you can have it revitalize it every time, rebuild it. So you'll see here, it pulled from that. It's got effective teaching methods section, comprehensive course content. It broke it down into categories. Teams and AI applications in Zoom, effectiveness of training. It put images in for me. I wouldn't say this is the best presentation I've ever seen, but it might be a starting point. But I wanted to show you what it did is it pulled from the other document that Copilot made and created a multi-slide presentation off of that pretty much one-page summary. And I can go through and talk about course pace, etc. So each of these slides have notes at the bottom, which is useful. So I could go in and take a look at the notes if I wanted to for each of these. Talks about the original content, and there's a notes page involved. So it gives you a starting point. And then you can always use Designer to adjust the design, etc. So again, you can use the other tools, but Copilot allows you to build an initial presentation that you can then go in and edit. And you can either build a presentation just from a prompt or by pointing it to a file. So again, that might be helpful for you. If you have to build presentations and you have a document or you have an idea, use Copilot to go in and give you a starting point, because then you can go in here and make adjustments. I can even ask Copilot to now add a slide about something in particular, or add a picture showing something, and it will add a picture in there. So Copilot is part of my presentation building process now.
Alec, we had a question. So they were actually asking about merging two PowerPoints together, and if Copilot could do that, because a lot of times we'll take one PowerPoint and reuse it, but we have to add something else from another one. And have you ever tried that, and how well does it work?
I have not tried that. Now I want to. So I think I know my project later today is to take two of my presentations and ask, see if Copilot can put them together, or if I can ask it to go out and pull maybe some of the specific topics from one presentation into this one.
It would be really cool if you could say, hey, take slides 1 through 10 from this presentation and add it to the presentation that's open or something.
Right, using a similar theme or something, right?
Yeah.
That's a great question, and I'm going to play around with that. That's not something I've yet done. Were there any other questions about the PowerPoint aspect? You can see that I could go on and on and on in each of these. I just have to. How many of you use Excel? Silly question, I know. Loaded
I
question.
think everybody uses Excel.
Excel is one of my favorite things. And so I'm going to pull up some examples of spreadsheets. I'm guessing many of you might track financial transactions, for example. This is an old sample of financial transactions that we use for some of my classes. We've used it for years. And you can see it's really old data, and it's all fake data anyway. So you'll see I've got the date of the transaction, how it was paid, who the vendor was, the expense category, who approved it, what department purchased it, how much it was, what budget fund it comes from, the status of the expense, whether it's been paid or encumbered, so it hasn't been paid yet, but earmarked for payment, what fiscal year it's in. This is just a really narrow subset of the data that might be collected for transactions, but also a really useful sample. Now, typically you would build pivot tables, you'd write formulas, all the things that I love, but sometimes you just have simple questions about the data, or you need to know how to do something, and maybe you're not up to date on IFS or ifs functions or XLOOKUP functions, and you need some help with them. Copilot is here to assist with all of that. So Copilot in Excel can be used in a lot of different ways. So one thing you could do is have Copilot actually guide you in doing things like building formulas, or it can actually write a formula for you. So if we have time, I can come back in here and ask Copilot to write a formula. And I've actually had Copilot write some really complex, really good formulas. So I'll look at their formulas after it'll write it. I'll be like, huh, that's actually really, really good. And they're complex embedded if statements and things like that. So we might try that. For this one, I might just ask some simple questions. I look at this and I might have a question. Let's see, I think I'm going to ask in 2011, how much did the MKTG marketing department spend on travel? Fair question. I mean, I could do that with a formula or a pivot table. But let's see if I just need a quick question, I don't need to put it anywhere in a report. I'll just ask Copilot. Okay, so what it does, it says in 2011, the marketing department spent $36,000 on travel. See the pivot table above for more details. So it got it from a pivot table it created. And let's see. And it said, so I didn't tell it calendar year or fiscal year. So that was important for my prompt, wasn't it? So it pulled it this time. It said amount for fiscal year 11, and department marketing and category travel was $36,000. That's probably different than the calendar year expenses based on the dates on the left-hand side. So again, prompting matters. And in this case, it did probably what it should have done and what we're probably caring about, fiscal year, but I didn't specify. So it's nice that it actually went to fiscal year for me, but you have to watch it.
When I've done pivot tables in the past, it seems to not compile the dates properly if you want to merge them by month, for instance. So if you want it to say July instead of 7/1, 7/2, 7/3, does Copilot solve that problem, or does it know how to solve that problem in a pivot table?
So just to give you an idea, I already recreated this pivot table. And I did this by calendar year. And so what I did is in the pivot table, I pulled in the year and then I pulled out everything else. I didn't want the date. I didn't want the month. I didn't want the quarter. All that was pulled out. So it was just simply the year, which is the calendar year, right? And here's marketing. And we'll see if I go down here to travel for the calendar year, it was $44,000. So that was a little different because it, of course, used fiscal year was already in a column. So it was pretty smart to pull that out. It knew since I put it in there, that's probably what I wanted. But yeah, I overcome that problem by removing the months and dates and leaving the year, or if I need the month in there, I leave the month. So I put the date column in there into the pivot table, and then I pull all the extra stuff out of it in my pivot table.
Okay, so here's a challenge for Excel.
Okay.
If you go back to can you tell Copilot to make another column with just the month and just the year? So 2 more columns, one for just the month and one for just the year, so you don't have to do it yourself.
Add a column that shows the month of the transaction, something like that.
Yes.
Start with just that and see if it does it. For example, this first one, what month was that? July. Okay, let's see. Which we would do with a formula. Let's see what formula it writes. Okay, so it says that this is what it's using, which is interesting. I might not have written it that way, but let's see what happens when I insert my column. A lot of Julys. Let's see what happens way down here. Oh, look at that. So yeah, I could ask it to do that, and then I can ask it to do another column with year, and there we go. So pretty smart, isn't it?
Yeah, that's nice because then you don't have to look up the formula or figure it out or type it in yourself or whatever you did in the past.
Right. Yeah. So that worked out perfectly. And I could do the same thing. It even named it month. I could have it do year as well. That would be simple formula. I could have it look up. Yeah, I could have it write something anytime the amount, any transactions that are $1,000 or more, add a column that says that it needs approval, right? Which is an if statement, an if function. And it would write a formula that would do that and analyze every one of them, and then it would say it needs approval if it's $1,000 or more. So I can add formulas like that. So it's been really impressive in 2 areas. One, it writes pretty good formulas. It really does. Still check the formulas. Definitely double check it. And the second area is it actually reviews, it understands your data set. Like these are pretty obvious. And I was careful to say MKTG rather than marketing department, things like that. But I have a spreadsheet that is meant for my eyes only. And the titles at the top were not necessarily all that clear. And I asked it a question. And by the context of the data, it was able to answer my question, even with very strange titles up there. So it actually goes through and attempts to understand the context of your data to figure out what it is.
So on the formulas, does Copilot handle a formula like if you're referencing another spreadsheet or another worksheet or another spreadsheet? I guess I should ask.
I haven't tried that, and we'll need to attempt to try that. So yeah, crossing worksheets would be the first thing I would try. And then crossing workbooks would be the other thing I would try after that. If you can't cross worksheets, it's not going to probably cross workbooks. Great questions. Lots of things for me to scribble down and try out. Other things that it can do, I could just tell it to show me data insights. And it will actually sometimes give me things that really aren't useful. Sometimes it'll give me really interesting insights. And then it'll allow you to create a new sheet with all the insights on it if you need to do some kind of reporting on it. So let me look at suggest conditional formatting. just give me a suggestion for a formula column. So I can use Excel. And this is one of the areas where it's expanding and getting enhanced rapidly is in Excel. It's getting better with working with your data. It's getting better at building out pivot tables and doing things for you that you would otherwise would have had to build, which I still get great joy building my own. So I might only use it some of the time. And it's actually, I don't know if anyone here uses Python. You can actually have like a Python plugin in Excel and have Copilot use Python on your data. So if you need to do more data analysis, you could use all sorts of new advanced tools that are being introduced that are tied in with Copilot and Excel. So this is an area that is really going to see some enhancements in the future, I think, is with your Excel data. Already, I really like it, but it's already better than when I first started using it and it came out when I was using it last year. It's already much better. So I still have a couple more that I want to show you. Again, notice I could spend 1 hour easily in Excel. I so badly want to pull up another workbook and show you some more examples, but I'm gonna skip that. Email. Now I use Outlook for my email. And let me pull this up. And there are a number of things that you might do in Outlook. And you'll see if I go into any of these messages, you'll see a little summarize button, the little Copilot button right there. And you'll also see Copilot show up at the top up here at times, depending on what you need to do. So if I create a new mail, for example, I have a new email. I need to draft a new email. There's Copilot. And I could draft a message, have Copilot write a message for me. Or I could ask for coaching. I could write a message and ask Copilot to analyze my message. And it'll tell me maybe I'm not being as clear or as empathic or as friendly as I need to be. I'm being a little short with my email. And it says, you might try this. So this is actually super useful in drafting and reviewing the emails you're going to send. Really like that. But the one piece that I want to show is that I might come down to, let's see. Let me find an email. I got a lot of emails in here. So Mindy and I have been going back and forth about building CMS training. And there's a lot to this. I'm sure you've all had emails where it goes back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And you have this long thread. You don't want to read it. Well, summarize it. And Copilot will read your emails and very briefly give you something like this. Mindy thanked me for setting up the course shells, provided details for 3 upcoming live learning sessions. If I want to know more, I click on the one, it'll send me to that email. Alec confirmed the setup and provided direct links. Mindy later requested changes and so on. You'll see this is basically a very concise version of the email conversation that happened below. And if I need to see details, I can then go to those specific sections of this email. To me, this is super useful because some of my threads get really long and I want to go back and see what is in the thread. This is what I go to first, is a quick summary of my email. So this, along with writing and getting coaching in my email, pretty useful. Other things that you might use, if you have Microsoft 365 or certain versions, you might have Microsoft Teams, you might have Microsoft Forms, you might have Power BI. If you're using Forms, you might use it to collect data from employees or students or customers. And I can go in here and say, create a new form. And when I create a new form, notice automatically, because I have Copilot, it says, hey, what do you want to do? Maybe we can help you. In the past, I would just come down here and I would start building everything out. And I still could do that if I wanted to. But I might start with this and say, create a survey to evaluate computer training workshops at the University of Wyoming. The audience, now notice my prompt is, if I want to add the audience, will be faculty, staff, and students. I didn't give it much information. I didn't even tell it what those computer training workshops might be. It might be useful for me to talk about Teams and Excel, etc. Let's see what it does. Okay, let's look at what it said. So here's a brief little summary. Select your affiliation, pretty useful. Which workshop did you attend? So it did want to put some workshops in there. Obviously, it didn't know the workshops that I wanted to use, but it gave me a placeholder that I can use to fill things in. It did a pretty good job, actually. How would you rate the overall quality of the workshops? And then additional comments. If I want to fine tune this, I can edit the prompt, I can ask for specific things, or I can just have it rebuild it. And it does do a slightly different job every time, but it gives you a starting point. That one wasn't different at all.
Can you reference a Word document on this to use for the outline or something?
I don't think so. I don't think I can edit a doc or reference a document from forums. I have not seen that capability, but that would be fantastic. When I like it, I keep it, and then I go in and make my own adjustments to it. So this works for creating new surveys or questionnaires or quizzes in this case, but I can also then go into any survey and ask Copilot to develop specific questions if I wanted to, or edit questions that already exist. Notice every single question has a Copilot button, and I can have Copilot then rewrite the question based on my prompt. So I can go question by question. So I did it by survey, but you can go question by question as well. So there's another example of AI built into one of the Microsoft products, in this case, Forms. And again, Forms take a long time to build. I'm going to show you one more because I'm running out of time. This is Microsoft 365 in general. And I might go to Copilot just in the cloud. And I did this one recently. University was on break for I had a 10-day break or something like that. You get back from a vacation and you have a lot to go through. I'm sure we've all been there. Wouldn't it be nice to have Copilot go through and say, Copilot, could you look at all my email and Teams messages and comments on documents and kind of give me an idea of what's been happening while I've been gone? So I can come in here and ask questions like, summarize the last week. Notice going through emails, chats, documents. I like this feature a lot. Okay, so it says in the last week, you had some important emails about Articulate 360 renewal payment. Yes, that is an ongoing issue. And these are the people who are involved in the conversation. Here are your emails to reference. Hey, Laura, you're in there. We have 12 registrants for the Thursday webinar. So all these important emails that came in, meetings, various meetings, files. I didn't have any meetings this week, so there's nothing in there. Files, worked on various files. No one else did. Again, it's been really quiet. Otherwise, there would be a lot more going on in here. But take a look at what it did. It basically told me, here's what's been happening in the last week. I could tell it in the last month or in the last 10 days if I wanted to. Or I can come down here and I can ask about specific, how about this? Do I have any outstanding action items? In other words, what are things that maybe emails that seem like action emails and I haven't replied to them? Or chats or other items. And it tries to figure out what my action items might be across the entire Microsoft ecosystem. You might want to prepare for the webinar. Too late, buddy. I'm in it already. But yeah, this first one's a big one for me to work on, Articulate 360 subscription. But again, there's my outstanding action items. I can ask, have I had any messages or emails from my director or direct supervisor, Brett Williams? And it would go through and say, oh, here's the stuff from Brett. Or have I been working with any conversations with a specific person? It would pull that in. So this ends up looking at the entire Microsoft ecosystem where you're collaborating and messaging with others and kind of pulling it all together in one place. This ends up being really useful for me. So you can see Copilot, there's more to it than this. Obviously, it's in Power BI, it's in OneNote, it's all over the place. There's more you can do within each of these applications. You can see that, yes, ChatGPT, the free version, is powerful, but you're not going to do what I showed you today with ChatGPT free because it's not tied in with your Microsoft ecosystem. Now, if you are a Microsoft user and you use Microsoft products, this ends up being super useful to tie together all of the different apps and data that you are working with. The last thing I want to mention is the cool thing that's coming out, and I know you might have questions I might need to stick on. There's something called AI agents. AI agents are the new thing. AI agents are a way to take this to the next level of automation, and there are pre-created agents, and there's something called Copilot Studio where you get to build your own custom agents, and they're creating an automation to automate a process, but they take it the next step because it's AI. It has the ability to adjust the process based on any new information, any feedback from customers, whatever you determine that agent is going to be and where it can collect the data. It can make adjustments based on new information and continue that automation, even in strange circumstances that you may not have otherwise thought about ahead of time. Now, I'm not an expert in agents, but this is where it's headed. These are the things that are coming out right now, is that next level artificial intelligence automation beyond what I just showed you today. So that's Copilot. I went for the full hour because I get chatty about this, and it's quite exciting.
So speaking of those automations, when do you expect UWIT might have some trainings for those? I mean, they're not out yet, but obviously maybe next summer, or
it'll probably be late this year would be the earliest we would ever see it, because we're still playing catch up on all the other AI stuff. And so that would come likely after the fact, unless somebody tells me to move it up in my priority list.
Okay. We will definitely watch for that, because I can tell you that there are people on this call right now that would be very interested in that when you get it together and you have it and you have it scheduled, Alec. So be sure to keep us informed.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll pass along more information as I find it, and feel free to join or direct others to the other 90-minute demonstrations that we have coming up in January, February, etc. It's open to everybody and free to everybody. So join us if you want to see a little bit more, or if you want your coworkers or friends or cohorts to see it as well.
Thank you, Alec, for taking your time to give us this great demo today. We really appreciate it. Some of the comments that were directly to me are wow, and this is really useful stuff and things like that. So I appreciate it a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for being here. It's a lot of fun stuff.